The Village Market, located at 95 Main Street, Fairfield, is your small-town, fully stocked grocery store with that big store feel. Carrying quality vegetables, fruits, meats, deli items, and sure-fine products. They even have some inviting desserts. On your lunch break, stop by and grab one of the prepared, ready-to-go meals. Village Market's knowledgeable and courteous staff makes your visit an enjoyable experience. Visit them on Facebook and online at villagemarketfairfield.com. Open 7 days a week, the Village Market. We've got your groceries and more.
Hello. This is Representative John Picciotti and Senator Scott Searway, and we'd like to welcome you to what's happening in Augusta, getting towards about the middle to the end of the session, and an awful lot to talk about.
There is, and it's really starting to really, I guess, really gain ground fast, because we're going to be going from 3 days sessions from last week, which was 3 weeks ago. It was 2 days a week, and then now it was 3 days. Now this week's going to be 5 days a week. We're going to be in session
from now till April 20th.
Yeah. And so it's going to be really a busy time. A lot of the committees are almost done. Their bills, but we have some that are governor bills, and we also have some last-minute bills coming in, and so some of the committees will still have to continue to take care of those as they come in. So
and from what I hear from the House side, strong possibilities we're going to be in 2 to 3 session days.
Yes, and it will be, and some will be late nights, I'm sure. So it's going to be very interesting. A lot of discussions, a lot of information going through as far as trying to figure out these new bills that, well, a lot of even the old bills are at the appropriations, and they're waiting there because there's a certain amount of fiscal notes put on them, and there's only so much money to use towards that, and there's been quite a discussion whether they're even going to have money to use towards it.
Right. Well, there's two things that are playing into play right now. Which was just out this week, the revenue report for the month of February was up 14.1%. For the year, and that's our fiscal year, is up 3.8%. So that means that for the month of February, we were $17,222,035 over what was projected.
Right.
For the year so far, we're up $79,111,000. So, that's a very good sign.
It is. This has been probably one of the best years as far as getting money, more than what we expected.
What was projected.
And I guess the biggest problem is because we had tax conformity come in, and there was a little disagreement there of what to do with it. The Senate had voted unanimously for the tax conformity bill to be passed because it mirrored what the federal government had put in for helping small businesses. And then when it went to the House, you can explain what happened there.
Well, in the House, what happened was that they made some amendments, and one of the amendments was putting, I believe it was up into $23 million they wanted for education, remembering that when we passed our budget last year, we had increased education by $83 million, and they wanted another $22 million.
Yep.
So they threw that on the tax conformity, and it did not pass. It went in, they negotiated with the governor's office, the Senate, and everything. They came out, and what happened was they came out with two separate bills.
Right.
One with $15 million to go to education, the other with the bill that the Senate had passed, and they both went through. So we solved that problem.
Right. And $15 million was added to it for for
For
education.
yes.
And which, certainly Maine needs to get the full benefit of these changes. And, we've had a lot of discussion on revenue sharing, tax sharing, and then this would help that from changing.
Right.
And so we really made it come together and worked it out, and it's going to help small businesses tremendously. And how it helps is like you can, we'll just say you have a piece of machinery of $100,000, and you want to go and depreciate that. And if for a depreciation value, you can do it in 5 years. They reduced it to 3 years, I believe.
Right.
And so they can actually get more tax benefit out of it and get some money to help replace that old machinery when it wears out, whatever, and to keep a business going. And when it went to the House, they had tried to get that money. Instead of putting it back to the business, it was going to go to the education, which made no sense. And then that's when we came up with the two different separate bills.
Right.
And then we put one for education, one for the
For
businesses.
businesses, because when they buy the machinery,
Right.
it's not only helping their business, it's taking, and I talked to a lot of businesses that said, you know what, if that doesn't go through, I'm just simply not going to buy that machinery.
Right.
They're buying it from a local vendor, generally about 90% of the time anyway, they're buying it from local vendors. Those people that they're purchasing it from, they've got people that work for them, and that helps their level and everything else.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I was going to talk, you'd mentioned sitting on the table at appropriations. I've been fighting this since 2010, but a film bill. Now, this film bill, which is LD 1004, all right, is sitting there. It does have fiscal note on it.
Yeah.
However, the fiscal note is not really a fiscal note because it shows the money going out, but doesn't show what we would get coming in. I've been in contact with a gentleman in Hollywood, Mr. Bill Farrell, and he has an entity that he heads up that is ready to build studios and create jobs in Maine. And that goes along with helping the indigenous workforce, training them and how they can use their basic skills within the film industry. Now, while it may be centered in Kennebunk, because that's where the plan of the studio is centering, it's going to be film production all over the state.
Right.
Now, we are looking at $100 million plus investment. Right now, there are projects written by Maine writers, I might add,
Yep.
that are all ready to shoot as early as this summer, if this film bill passes. And when I say film bill, what it basically, just simplify it. Right now, every state kind of gives film credits. Maine has a 12% film credit. But unfortunately, to get the films that we would like to get here, the big ones,
Yeah.
we need to get into the competition of a 25%. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, other states are, well, the way the bill is also written that in a few years, it is designed to come back, be looked at again to make sure that it is performing the way it should perform. Meanwhile, we're 1,000 jobs plus in a $100+ million studio with hotels, businesses, and things like that. So it's
That's
just
terrific, and we got to bring in these jobs, and that's what we're working at,
Yes.
is trying to bring in more jobs, it begins like that. Right now I'm working on with some individuals and whatever, trying to get a computer museum together.
Oh, cool.
And so we'll see how that all comes out. I can't say too much about it at this
Sure.
point, but once that comes up, it'll expand and it'll go into STEM type projects. So,
Yeah.
it'll be awesome. But anyway, when we would talk about the tax conformity, when we went to the education piece, I just wanted to let the area know how much this is an advantage to our area. So I cover District 16, which is Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Plantation. And so just for our figures, so that you know how much money is going to each school, out of that 15 million that was released, that will help out, because we had 83 million already budgeted to the schools.
Yep.
And some of them was complaining that there was a shortfall there.
And most, they're big, yeah, there is.
Right.
Yep.
And so with this 15 million, it did add to your school budgets, and so for Winslow, it brought it up another added $80,175.67. Waterville was $106,250.67. I don't know where the 67 cents comes in, but anyway.
That's that wonderful EPS formula.
Right, yeah, it is. And then we have Cus Lawrence High School and Benton Albion and Fairfield and Junior High. They get $118,265. So this is not, like Obama said, chump change. This is money that really will help our tax dollars here in this area. And so I'm proud of how we took care of the business people, and we still took care of the education piece. And that's important. I got emails from accountants in the area, and they said, geez, what's going on here? You know, our business people are anxious to get their taxes done, and what's the holdup? And I said, well, you know, this has got a big change here with they're trying to take education money out of business people, and that didn't go well. And you know, so I you know, expressed this to the Senate, our leaders, and they went back to the table, and they got it figured out so that we could get that you know, that education piece taken right out of that tax conformity bill, and then we managed to get and got the governor on board on the education piece. So that was awesome.
It was. And, you know, let's go down to businesses again, because that's what makes us go around and pays the bills, is we've had some heavy minimum wage discussions, shall we say.
Yep.
And where we're sitting at, actually in today's newspaper, Corey King, who is head of the Skowhegan Chamber of Commerce, had a very good op-ed piece in the paper that basically discussed the aspect of what the minimum wage as it is currently proposed will do to small businesses and large businesses, but around the state and employment. Now, our employment rate right now was, for the year, is at 3.8%, which is wonderful. I mean, it's practically, you go just about 60 to 70% of the businesses you go into today all have signs up that are looking for people, and they need help. Now, according to Corey put together apparently a feed out to a little bit over 200 businesses and got replies from over 200 businesses on how this minimum wage would affect them. Now, the reason I bring it up is because there was another proposal that was put in on the minimum wage that was a competing measure. Instead of going up to $12 an hour, it went up to $10 an hour, which was still a pretty hefty pay hike over the next few years for the minimum wage based on what it is now. And what basically has happened is that it was put out on the floor in the House to put it as a competing measure so that both of those minimum wages could be on the ballot. Let the people of Maine choose which one they want. Right. Instead of either an up or down saying, yes, we want it, or no, we don't want no part of it, it would give them a choice of one of two. And it was defeated twice, actually, came to the floor twice, once by 8 votes, once by 11 votes. Very, very sad. Corey's results, according to his op-ed, were 60% of businesses would be less likely to hire anybody new if we went to that $12 an hour minimum wage. 43% would currently lay off employees, and it would practically end the teen employment altogether. Plus, a lot of other businesses said they would start replacing people with electronic machines at the, ordering and things like that, and all kinds of different things. So there is a big push there. I really would like to see us somehow be able to get that second thing out onto the public, so that the people of Maine could make the decision of whether or not to take it.
I've talked to many people, and a lot of them say, yeah, we need the minimum wage increase, and we need it, the one that's on the ballot. And I said, well, what about, the businesses? Oh, they're going to be okay. They'll do it. Well, they raised it to $15 an hour at
Washington.
In Washington. Yeah. And immediately they lost 750 jobs right off the top, and it's been going downhill from there.
Since, yes.
If you want to check history and check what's happened, check that out. But also the other part is it's awful nice to get that big raise, but if you don't have a job that pays it, it's not going to do you any good. So really. These people that, I realize that, the welfare situation is going to increase because you're going to have less people working and they're going to be more on welfare. And then who pays those welfare? To pay that income to the welfare people, it just is going to drain everybody else down. And you're going to have less business, less people getting pay, less people earning for retirement. If you're on welfare, you're not earning retirement. And that's a big thing.
Yeah.
You don't get Social Security, you don't get there's a lot of things.
Well, the other situation is that these are, generally speaking, entry-level jobs. They give people experience to be able to move up in the world and make more money. Now, will the minimum wage affect a lot of the jobs that there's already, levels of experience in that? No. Where it's really going to hurt is the people that are on the bottom, and also even young kids, teenagers and stuff, to gather experience to move within their life and move up. And
not to mention, once you raise the bar at, we'll just say $12 an hour, we have, professionals that start, that get into fields, we'll say even, police, they're starting at, $15, $18 an hour. Well, where's that's gonna end up wanting to bump them. As it is right now, the governor's asking for 17% increase for the state police. Yeah. And not to mention, I believe they had a raise agreement of a step increase and a raise of 3%. So it was this, between the step and the raise was another 6%. So 6% plus the 17% is 23%.
Yeah.
That's a major increase. And then what happens there is if we approve that, there's a ripple effect. It's throwing the rock in the water, because then you'll have the municipal and the sheriff's office. These deputies and police officers are gonna want raises as well, and then they're not gonna take the 1 or 2% or 3%. They're gonna want 10% or 17%.
Yeah, and it's going to be.
And then your taxes are going to go up.
Bingo.
There's no chances. We're not the ones that control that. As far as those negotiations and whatever, and then where they're going to come up with that money. We can try to vote and not vote, but then we always look like the bad guy when we don't vote
Yep.
for something. And
Yep.
just like state police, I think that state police and sheriffs and police officers and any first responders that do public service, I was in it. And yeah, it would have been great to have that raise. But you know what? I didn't do it for the money. I did it because I wanted to help people. And I did do, you want to pay them a decent wage. But at the same token, money is not the answer as far as bringing it way out of whack for everybody else. You can't, I think that's not quite the answer. I think that there can be a happy medium met. And the same thing with minimum wage. We have to look at, it'd be great everybody had that increase, but in reality, it's going to raise taxes, going to get rid of jobs, and it's going to get rid of business. This bill also that's coming takes out tips for restaurants and for waiters and waitresses. And if they take away that, you're going to lose those people. I know, and I've seen where, they wanted teachers to get a base pay of $40,000.
Yep.
And by putting $40,000, then the person with 3 to 5 years, that would raise that up to 45 or 50, and it just goes up from there. And then, teachers do work 9 months out of the year, but the other 3 months, I've seen them work like at Jordan's Pond Restaurant, making another $15,000 in the summer on tips and wages. And so that $40,000 becomes $55,000 a year, and that's just beginning pay they're talking. So you have to look at the full picture, and that's what we have. That's why we're voted in to do that, and we're trying to save you money on your taxes. One thing that I really am proud of, that in the Senate, we just got to vote on death tax. And it's going to come to the House now, right?
That was the tax on estate planning.
Right.
The House killed it.
Yeah, the House killed it, but we brought it. I
don't like to bring politics into it or anything else, but it was primarily straight along party lines.
Yeah.
And the House killed it. And it isn't that big of an effect on most Mainers, because right now there is no estate tax on, I think it's $5 million and below.
Yeah.
However, the big ticket guys that have the money that move out of Maine, they stay here in the summertime, but they do the 6 month in 1 day, so that the residents of Florida or residents of the states that don't have that tax, all of that money goes down into that state. We see none of it up here, and it's not spent up here.
And it doesn't keep the people that are well off here, who could actually do, they could give money for benefits. How many Alphonse centers do we have out there and whatever?
Lots.
Just think of that.
Yes.
And that's what I'm talking about. We may have situations where somebody wants to donate, but if they said, hey, if they're going to take our estate money and
take a big chunk
I'm
of
going to
it
go
when something
somewhere
happens.
else and stay there. So we do have, it's a big picture, and it's very easily to just look at ourselves. But, I can remember even in law enforcement, when I first started at the jail, when I worked at the jail, our budgets were very tight. And I think I was making $5.65 an hour my first year. And then the second year, I think we got a 20-cent raise. And so, but anyway, when I was working there, they ran out of money at the end of the year, and they actually asked us who could give up their paycheck to pay for the people that needed money. And I was one of them that gave up my paycheck. And it's because, the money is not everything. We try to help each other. And I think by looking at this minimum wage thing, if we can make it a happy medium, we can take care of the businesses, we can still take care of the people that bring the minimum wage up, and try to have a happy medium. And that's basically what we're trying to do here. We don't want to disrupt the whole ball of wax here, because if you go too high, it can really disrupt your economy by killing our businesses.
Yeah. Speaking of the jail, we did have a bill come through for extra money for the jail, and I believe it did pass the House. I think it's over into the Senate now, which will make a big difference on, for example, our Somerset County jail, where we've got we were forced to build it and told, oh, don't worry about it because you'll be able to house prisoners and
Yep.
you'll make money on it and stuff. And of course, that has all fallen through the cracks. And
Right.
we don't get paid the amount of money that it costs to house the prisoners. So it costs the county money. So hopefully that will go through. Yeah, it's a spending bill, but it would help the jail, and it will help all the taxpayers in Somerset County because of the
Yeah. And then a lot of this money is still in appropriations on fiscal notes, and this is the big problem. We used 15 out of the 70, was it 73 million or 72 million? We used 15 million towards the education.
79 million.
79 million. I knew it was in the 70s, but 15 million went for education, and now
Yeah.
what's left over, the governor wanted to put in the rainy day fund. And so what's left over, now we get this money going to go to rainy day fund, and then there's no money to take care of all these important bills that's still sitting there in appropriations.
And just a brief explanation, rainy day fund is a fund that is set aside. It dramatically affects our bond rating in the state. That bond rating is so very important because that affects the interest rates of what we have to pay as a state when we borrow money.
Yeah.
And so you have to keep a certain percentage, just like you're sitting there with a savings account. Hopefully you have a savings account in case something dramatic happens in your life, whether it be lose your job or something, that you've got some money to live on. And that's what that rainy day fund is basically, is if there is a real disaster and our budget
And it happens
goes down
in Washington. We went from a A+ rating to from a AA to a A+, right? Wasn't it? It went down a rating.
dropped down, and that costs the government money when they borrow money. They have to pay extra interest.
So these are big decisions. When we spend this money, we have to really be careful because, we're in $20 trillion debt right now nationally, and it keeps compounding.
The kids and grandkids are the ones that are going to really suffer for that one.
They are, we've got to stop our spending, but at the same token, there are very important bills out there, and we try to do our best and trying to balance that.
Speaking of important bills, we've got the one thing, I think it went to the Senate. I'm not sure where it's at voting-wise, but we did pass our bill, the right to try. And I'll just go into a brief explanation. That the bill was put in, written by Tom Longstaff, Representative Longstaff. I also signed on to the bill too, as part of it. But it is basically just a bill that says that if you have a terminal illness and there is a medication out there that could very possibly save your life, and it has gone through the first phase. These are not crapshoots of people just selling you stuff saying, oh, this is going to fix you.
Right.
This has to have gone through the first phase of the FDA program.
Yeah.
And in all likelihood is already being sold overseas and used and working. You have the right to try that medication without having to go through all of the paperwork. FDA does have a process of doing it, but there's been an awful lot of people that has happened to, where they've put the paperwork in and died before the FDA has come back.
Yeah.
And in a lot of these drugs, it takes almost 15 years for the FDA to approve, which is totally ludicrous.
Yeah.
And we're just combining with 30, 35 other states right now, and it's a phenomenal bill that is going to, I think, again, it's the helping of people. Somebody that, if you're within 6 months of dying, you would probably like to try something that,
Right.
And there's a ton of cures out there for cancer and stuff that we're not allowed to use in this country yet.
Yep.
But you can catch a plane, go over to Europe if you want to, and try it.
I know. Yeah, and that's a really good bill. There's some other bills that are in appropriates that I'm working on. One is to protect all students in elementary and secondary schools from sexual assaults by school officials. That one's in appropriations. There's very little funding that's needed on that. Hopefully they'll release that, but there again, the budgets of what's controlling it right now is kind of like they're not releasing anything out of appropriates until they decide what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my film bill hasn't even come to the table.
Right.
I mean, and this is stuff that we're sitting there, and when
It's just sitting there.
1,000 jobs,
I know.
plus or minus, but it's going to be close to that, sitting there waiting that we need in this state, and they're not minimum wage jobs.
Yeah.
These are paying jobs.
Now, I do have a bill that's coming up soon as an act to increase sentences imposed for illegal importation of scheduled drugs. And that's going to, basically, it's trying to keep the heroin, the cocaine, the fentanyl from coming into the state. And how it works, it's very simple. I'm a farm boy, and if just put it in simple terms, if you got cows in a pasture, we'll say that's the out-of-state people. And then you've got a hay field, a nice one for crops where you're gonna hay it and keep it for the winter. Well, you got a fence to protect that. And that hay field would be Maine, we'll say. Well, those cows, if it's a weak fence, they'll find a way to get into that hay field. And that's what's happening. And so if we put a good, strong jolt to it, I remember years ago, I used to take a long blade of grass and you'd put it on the fence, and the closer you got, you'd get the...
Oh, the zap, yeah. The electric fences, yes. Yes.
Well, this is going to, really give you that jolt. So hopefully this, when somebody comes to our state and brings drugs to our state, they're not going to go home. And that's what I want. And then when their buddies say, geez, where are they? They're not coming back. They're going to know why,
When you think about that, electric fence, instead of building all these stupid walls, why don't they just run an electric fence all around the border?
Good, strong
they could
one,
use
right?
They could use solar panels.
Solar panel. Good. Well, we got to have fun on this show, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and that goes along with the bill that I had put in last year that never made it out of committee, which was the prescription monitoring program bill that would mandate doctors to have to use the bill when they give out opiate prescriptions. And it got killed in there because the governor doesn't like mandates, and the word mandate
right
in there. Now all of a sudden, there is a new governor's bill in there to mandate doctors use the PMP system. But anyway, it's immaterial. It just hopefully it comes out of committee and also gets, because that's going to have a tremendous impact on our opiate.
Sure, well, yeah, and that's very important.
Yeah.
Also, I just put in a firefighters bill for assaults on firefighters. That's been a growing problem, as people don't realize, but what happens is when a firefighter goes to a call, they're usually the first off at the scene, and we'll say fires, or if they get a complaint that somebody got a fire going without a permit, or there may be a drug issue where somebody's having an overdose situation. Usually EMTs and fire is called out, and they may get there before the police get there. So what we had was a situation where a firefighter went to a call on a burning without a permit, and the guy got really upset with him and pushed the firefighter, and then two other guys tackled the firefighter, and it really got out of control. And then we've had one where the guy was on bath salts, and he when they arrived, he had a bloody mouth, and he spit blood into the mouth of the other firefighter.
Oh, God.
We've had situations, many situations like this that are happening, and we need to protect our firefighters. The way it is right now, we have assaults on police officers, which is a felony and a Class C crime, and on a simple assault. So they also did that with canines. They did it with EMTs, horses, but they don't have one for firefighters.
For firefighter.
So
Doesn't
I
make much sense.
put this emergency bill in to protect the firefighters.
good.
You know, so there's A is police officers, B
Yeah.
would be canines, C is EMTs, D is horses for police horses, and E will be the firefighters. It'll be in there. So
Is it in committee now, or is it?
it is.
it
It's
out,
going
or-
to go to committee. I just went to Ledge Council and got
good,
it approved.
Good, okay,
And it was a 9-1 vote.
excellent.
Yeah, so I was surprised at one of the votes, but it happens.
Priorities. And sometimes
Right.
you sit there and you
Yeah.
cannot, for the life of you, try to figure out where somebody's mind is at.
Well, I know. I mean, this guy that voted against this, the next time, about 2 or 3 bills later, they had one on opiate addictions, and they tried to vote for it to allow medical marijuana to treat opiate addictions.
Okay,
So anyway, needless to say, it didn't pass, but there was this one and 2 others
voted for it.
voted for
Yeah,
it.
who knows?
So
Yeah.
sometimes, I can't
I
figure
know.
out people's reasoning when you're trying to protect people, like firefighters was very important, and any of these first responders, because they are paid, little money for what they do, but they want to help people, and that's what they're in the job for. And, you see volunteers out there doing this, and
There was,
yeah.
another bill that actually has gone through now too, that we talked about it in earlier shows, but we've got almost 18,000 families that are, kids are being raised by either grandparents, aunts, uncles, that type of thing. And it was always a problem with the school and hospital type of situation.
Yeah.
Most generally, you could put the kids in school, or if you bring them to the hospital, you can get them treated and, that type of thing. However, as a grandparent, for example, if you said, okay, well, let me see, I want to meet with the kid's teacher, or I want to, what's the situation here, doctor? Sorry, you're not the guardian. We can't give you any information.
Yeah.
We did get a bill passed. It was a kinship bill,
Kinship bill.
on the caregivers. And so now that'll go into law, and to my knowledge, it'll go into law, but that'll become where the grandparent can actually get the information
Yeah.
from the school, from the doctor, that type of thing too. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a very good positive step forward.
I'm taking care of my granddaughter right now because my daughter's in the military.
Right.
She's in there for 4 months in basic training right now. She went through the gas chamber, they call it.
Yes, I've been there and done that.
She just went
Yes.
through that. And she did the wall, and then she
Yep.
did
Done
the
that
ropes
too.
course and
Yep.
all that. So she's getting the treatment, and then she's going to go into MP training after she gets
Oh,
the
excellent.
basic.
That one I never did.
Yeah. So she's going to be she's in the National Guard, and she's joined the Army, and she's proud of what she's doing, and I'm proud of her. So,
Yes, she was good. I remember
Yeah.
the day when she was leaving, she was all excited.
Oh, yeah.
And that, yeah.
And she's
She was
doing
at
very
the
well.
State House, I believe.
Yeah. She said she's only been yelled at once, and that was for being polite.
Well, that's not bad. Hey,
But she learned how to make a bed good.
wish I could have had that situation.
Right.
Yeah, you learn how to make a bed and how to keep your locker neat, too.
Yeah. Another thing that we would like to discuss is in our the Senate and the House also, I think a lot of them signed on, is trying to fix this caucus situation and
Yeah.
primary situation, caucus/primary. So the caucus situation was kind of like we had unexpected number of people that showed up at these caucuses.
Oh, it was packed.
And it was
Yeah.
packed. And the problem is people would have to travel. For example, I live in Benton, traveled to Chelsea,
Oh, wow.
yeah, for that caucus.
Okay. See, ours was in Skowhegan, so
Right.
it wasn't as bad.
Yeah.
But
So I had to go clear to Chelsea. Got there, and I was there a little early, but there was several people that said when they were coming in, they had to park from there was Chelsea School, and it was almost like a mile and a half or
Yep.
a mile to Togus,
Yep.
and there was cars up to
All
Togus.
the way up to Togus. Wow.
And not to mention that they had to go upstairs to find their towns, and downstairs was
Where you
speakers
voted,
and
yeah.
voting and stuff like that. But it got very confusing,
Yep.
and so a lot of people were confused to where they had to go and whatever. And so I guess there was a lot of complaints at a lot of the caucuses.
There was.
And
There
I
was.
heard there was a lot of confusion even up at your caucus.
Yeah, it was confusing because each town had its own. We were at the Skowhegan Middle School, and every town had their own schoolroom, but then you had to get a ticket to go vote, and so they had to get up. And it was just a constant push back and forth, and you voted in a different place, and
Yep.
it was
Some waited long times, and then they
Yes.
left because
Yep.
they got discouraged.
Yeah, there was big long
yeah.
lines and things like that.
So they decided that they thought that primaries might be better. So they put a bill in to change it to the primaries, and now it's going to come to Veterans and Legal Affairs, which is,
Yeah.
I chair
It's-
that committee. So
yeah, that'll
I'm
be
the lucky guy who has
yeah,
to deal
I think
with this.
Senator Alfon put it in.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people signed on to it, which
I signed on to it
I also
myself.
signed on to it.
Yeah.
However, in talking with some of the city clerks and stuff,
Yeah.
there's going to have to be some stuff worked out because it could become very costly
Costly.
to us. Yeah.
And then there it go again. If this goes in appropriations, like I said, we're going to have a difficult time in
Yeah.
getting it out of appropriations. So that's what we deal with, and
Right. Well,
it's a
you know.
part of life. We will be dealing with those bills, I think, eventually, all the bills. So one way or the other, it's going to have to decide where that money's coming from.
Yeah.
If it gets passed. And if it doesn't get passed, it gets vetoed, or if it gets passed, it gets vetoed.
then we'll have to
then
go
it has to
back.
come back, and then
Vote on
there
the
again.
veto. Well, the thing of
Yeah.
it is with the primaries, I think what the clerk's situation, they would just like it, and it becomes, because when you tie it up like this year
Right.
with the presidential primary, that type of thing, you've got a situation where you can't, you've got town, because these primaries all interfere with our town meetings.
Right.
And the clerks are all pounding on those town meetings, and
Yeah.
there's different aspects. So I think it can work very well. It just has to be all coordinated so that we do it all at the same time instead of in 4 different times. That type of situation.
Right. And we worked hard on an absentee ballot.
Yeah,
bill
that
as
was
well.
that was a good bill because
Yeah.
that gives them a little bit more of a break of counting the ballots instead of
Right.
jamming everything up on a couple of days
Yeah.
and
So we
really
opened it up to
confusing
3
things.
days instead
Yeah.
of the. We was going to have it 4 days, but there was quite a discussion about that.
Yeah, I
and
suspect.
So anyway, we worked it out, and it was very difficult. I'll tell you, I don't know how many times I went back and forth, trying to get these. I got even, our Secretary of State there,
Yeah,
Julie
Matt.
Flynn. Julie Flynn for the
assistant.
assistant
Yeah.
to come and help us out, and we had Matt Dunlop I talked to
Yeah.
as well, and we even had him come and discuss things with us, and we worked it out, and we had the clerks. I had to have the Clerks Association
Yes.
help us out through it. It was quite intense you wouldn't think just a few days or could happen, but it does. It takes a lot of work to get everybody on board to make sure that these ballots are done right. And there was a lot to it. There was going to be a central balloting type machine that was going to go through them, and they were going to try to do it where they'd pick up the ballots and then bring them to one location. but that got cut out. They're not going to do that.
Well, again, because of the aspect of having to buy a new machine,
Right.
you got costs there,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
towns, it all falls back onto the property owners,
Right.
and that's where it comes up. Also, so we just, in case we don't forget, is we have the Moose Lottery coming up, and on currently, everybody, any hunters, you have to have your information in by May 16th. So it's very important. I do have a phone number that you can call that they'll send you paperwork, which is 287-8000. It's 287-8000. You just call that number and
Yep.
they'll send you the paperwork. You can go on online too
Right.
if people have their
Yep.
if people have their pens handy. It's www.5.informe, informe.org/online/moose. And they can actually enter it right online too. So
Also, I'd like to give you another number is 211 for resources. If you want any questions on resources for the state of Maine, you can call 211 and explain what your situation is, and they will direct you to the right source, what you need, and get you that location, what you need, and should help you a lot on all aspects. So 211, very easy number, and it would really help you. So if you have any of those serious questions that you'd like to get answered, and it's nice to have that resource.
yep. Our next show should be very interesting because we will have had a couple of weeks of solid
Yeah.
going-ons and anywhere between 1 to 3 sessions a day, 5 days a week. So we will have covered a lot of bills.
Yeah,
a lot
and many
stuff.
times we may be in session, and then we have to wait while we're waiting for the House to bring papers over to
Yeah,
us.
mostly waiting for the Senate to bring papers to us.
It works both ways, I guess. and it's just trying to get things done and
Right.
in a timely fashion. And we have like this firefighters bill. It was a last minute ditch effort to get it done because if we have to wait till next year to get that passed, these firefighters are not going to be protected. So
Yeah.
we really need to do things like that
Yep.
help each other and
And any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact either myself or Senator Saraway.
That's right. You can
Because
go
we're here
online.
for the people, and it's just a matter of hearing from the people so that we know what you're looking at, what you're looking for, and we work for you guys.
Yeah, I enjoy this job. I was brought into it by one of my DARE students, and I never even thought about doing this, but I do enjoy it. I think that we are making a difference, and I think everybody over at the State House does have your best interests at heart. I think they're all
Yep.
trying to do a good job. So that's the main thing. We all
Absolutely.
get along there. We do.
Yeah.
Well, you
was,
hear about the turmoils on TV and radio and whatever, but really,
We actually smile and say hi to
we
each other.
do. So it's not that bad.
Right. Well, you're right on the running. This isn't something that I thought of as a retirement job.
Right, yeah. I know. My wife's going to retire here soon. I said, geez, that's pretty nice. She gets retired. I'm still going.
You're still going.
But, I
That's the way
do
it is.
enjoy it, though.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next show.
Thank you.
Thank you.